It is the 10th of January 1870. In Cleveland, Ohio, a 30-year-old businessman and his partners incorporate the Standard Oil Company. Over the coming years, they build on their initial $1 million investment by buying up smaller oil companies and refineries across Ohio and beyond, so that by 1890, Standard Oil is worth $100 million and controls over 90% of US oil production. By the time he retires, the company's founder is, for better or worse, one of the richest and most influential men in the history of the United States, and indeed the world. His name? J.D. Rockefeller, the world's first billionaire. The man known to history as John D. Rockefeller was born John Davison Rockefeller on the 8th of July, 1839, in the small town of Richford in New York State. The Rockefellers arrived in North America around 1723, when Johann Peter Rockefeller and his family migrated from the Rhine Valley in western Germany to New Jersey, later relocating to New York State. John's father, William or Bill Avery Rockefeller, was a traveling salesman who described himself as a botanic physician or herbal doctor, a euphemism for his habit of making fake medicines from herbs in his mother's garden and claiming their potency to cure all sorts of ailments. Quack doctors of this kind were very common in the early 19th century. An all-round con artist, William subsequently used the money he made from selling his supposed medicines to loan out money at usurious rates to poor farmers, often with the specific aim of later acquiring their properties when they could not pay him back. An unscrupulous character, he would later be arraigned in court for sexual assault and violent conduct involving gun possession. In late 1836, while William Rockefeller was roving around the countryside near Richford, he met Eliza Davison and charmed her with his wild tales. In February 1837, the couple were married, despite the fact that Bill was already engaged to a beautiful but penniless woman named Nancy Brown. Eliza Rockefeller was the youngest daughter of John Davison, a rich farmer who lived between Niles and Moravia in New York State, some 30 miles to the north. Eliza's mother had died when she was a child after taking a pill sold by a man claiming to be a traveling doctor. John Davison, a Scots-Irish man, was accordingly quite suspicious of his daughter's desire to marry Bill Rockefeller, whom he believed was seeking to get hold of the family's money and who appeared to be a quack doctor, selling the kind of unsafe potions and pills that had led to his wife's death many years earlier. After moving in with her husband, Eliza found herself sharing the same roof as Nancy Brown, whom Bill had engaged as his housekeeper. It was soon apparent that Nancy's duties went beyond her job description, and over the next 2 years Bill would welcome 4 children, 2 each from wife and mistress. Eliza had a daughter named Lucy and a son named John, the future oil magnate, while Nancy gave birth to 2 girls. Although Eliza pitied Nancy, and the 2 women maintained cordial relations during William's often prolonged absences from home, the Davisons eventually forced Bill to send Nancy back to her parents with her 2 illegitimate daughters in tow. Following their departure, Eliza gave birth to another son, William Jr. With her husband often away for several months at a time, Eliza ran a frugal household. When John was 3 years old, the family moved to Moravia, 3 miles away from the Davison farm. In 1843, Eliza gave birth to another daughter, Mary Ann, and in 1845, twins Frank and Francis, the latter of whom died just before her 2nd birthday. In spite of his unscrupulous business practices, Bill Rockefeller achieved a level of respectability for a time during the 1840s in the town of Moravia, and helped finance the foundation of the local school. At the same time, he considered farm work beneath his dignity, and the 2 elder boys, John and William Jr., were soon required to do much of the manual labor around the Rockefeller. This caused John and William Jr. to mature quickly. John attended the school established by his father. Although he was not exceptionally bright, he had a natural aptitude for mental arithmetic. He was otherwise a quiet, introverted boy who lacked the exuberance of his peers, but he was patient. When playing chess or checkers, he would take his time considering every move, an approach which frustrated his opponents and caused them to lose. This habit of cool reflection was encouraged by his mother, who had much time and cause over the years to reflect on her impulsive decision to marry the erratic and errant Bill Rockefeller. John also owed his strong sense of faith to his mother, who took her children to the local Baptist church. The 1840s was a time of economic and territorial expansion in the United States, and John D. Rockefeller exhibited an entrepreneurial spirit characteristic of the era from a very early age. As a boy, he bought candy from the store by the pound, divided it into smaller portions, and sold it to his siblings at a profit. At the age of 7, he came upon a nest of turkey chicks in the woods and raised them at home for sale. John's childhood desire to make money owed much to Bill's influence. Although he would come to recognize his father's numerous character flaws, as a child John lionized his father as a strong, athletic man who took his children hunting and fishing and entertained them at home by singing songs and playing the violin. While the family experienced long periods of anxiety while Bill was away, he would return with generous gifts and large amounts of cash, earned by both fair and foul means. Among Bill's more legitimate enterprises was a lumber business in Moravia, and when John was 8 or 9, he was taught how to select good quality wood for the family house. As a businessman, Bill negotiated aggressively and did not hesitate to take advantage of the ignorance of potential customers. At the same time, he generally offered generous wages to his workers, paid his debts on time, and carried out his contractual responsibilities. John's own business practices later in life would closely resemble his father's. He would avoid the controversies that dogged his father, though. After being indicted for sexual assault in 1849, Bill Rockefeller left Moravia, and in spring 1850, the family moved to Owego, near the Pennsylvania border. It may have been around this time that John stopped idolizing his father and recognized him for who he was. He soon began referring to his mother as a widow, and in adult life he avoided talking about his father. In August 1852, John and his brother William enrolled in the prestigious Owego Academy. But after a few months, Bill took the family further west to Strongsville, Ohio. In the autumn of 1853, the Rockefeller boys resumed their education at the higher school in nearby Cleveland. As American settlers moved towards the Pacific, encouraged by discoveries of gold in California, the country was sharply divided on the question of slavery. In his school essays, Rockefeller expressed himself as an ardent abolitionist, a cause championed by the newly founded Republican Party. John was close friends with Mark Hanna, who would later become a powerful Republican Party boss and senator for New York. John hoped to go to university, but in May 1855, on the eve of his graduation, his father abruptly asked him to drop out of school and find a job. The unwelcome news was connected to the double life that Bill Rockefeller was now living. For several years, he had taken his traveling doctor act across the frontier into Canada, and in 1852, he met and fell in love with 17-year-old Margaret Allen from Ontario. While courting the teenager, Bill conveniently neglected to mention the presence of his wife and 5 children south of the border. And in June 1855, William Rockefeller contracted a bigamous marriage with Allen. William realized that he did not have the financial means to maintain 2 families and encouraged his eldest son to find work.